started. And roll call, please.
President Alvarado,
I'm here.
Vice President Sudeth,
I'm here.
Director Stanley,
Is
I
Director
cannot
Stanley
hear.
mute? Is she muted by chance?
No, her, for some reason, she doesn't have audio. So, troubleshoot her.
okay.
Justin, are you able to help her?
Yeah, I'm going to work on that.
I'm going to go ahead. Director Weiner
Here.
and Director Zepeda.
Here.
Okay.
Okay, seeing we have a quorum, next item, please.
Pledge of Allegiance or an observation of a moment of silence, please.
Okay, I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all. Next item, please.
Next item is the approval of the agenda. Any member of the board may request an agenda item be postponed, removed, or heard out of order. Any item may not be added to the agenda unless it meets the requirements of an emergency situation as defined in Government Code, Section 54956.5.
Okay, so I have a request from the staff to remove item 5D, which is adopt a resolution authorizing the general manager to commence the PIPE program and approve an amendment to the biennial budget by $400,000 to fund the PIPE program and year ending 2021. Can I have a second?
Second.
Please take the roll.
Sorry. President Alvarado,
Yes.
Vice President Sudeth,
Yes.
Director Weiner,
Yes.
Director Zepeda,
Yes.
and has Director Stanley joined us?
She shows on my.
Not yet. She's showing up. Let me.
She's on mute. There we go.
She's calling in through audio, so I don't know if this one's working
Okay.
for her yet.
Continue. We got 4-0. Go ahead. Next item, please.
Number 3 is public comments, items not on the agenda. I did not receive any comments. Would you like me to proceed?
Yes, proceed to item 4.
Item 4 is the consent calendar. Matters on the consent calendar are considered routine and will be approved without discussion. Prior to approval of the consent calendar, a member of the board may request that an item be removed for discussion. If a member of the public would like to speak to an item on the consent calendar, the member should email the board clerk, which is me, prior to the start of the meeting. I did not receive anything, sir.
Okay. What is the wish of the body? Can I have a motion to approve the consent?
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Okay, can we get a second, please?
Who said that? I'm sorry.
Director Weiner.
Thank you.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded. Please take the roll.
President Alvarado,
Yes.
Vice President Sudeth,
Sherry, you're on mute.
Vice President Sudeth.
Both of us say yes.
Okay, thank you. Director Weiner,
Yes.
Director Zepeda,
Yes.
and was that Director Stanley?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next item,
Passes
please.
unanimously. Do I need to read the A and the B
For the action calendar?
for the consent calendar?
No, you're good.
Okay, thank you.
Approved.
Number 5 is the action calendar. The board will discuss and seek public input before taking action. Section A is adopt a resolution approving a new job classification and specification of health and safety coordinator, authorizing the amendment of the fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 2021 position control list and wage schedule effective May 20th, 2020.
Okay, who from staff is presenting this?
I will be presenting. Good evening, President Alvarado.
Is that the pipes or is that the Brown Act?
Neither.
This is
Neither.
the Health and Safety Coordinator.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah. So good evening, Justin Lovell, Administrative Services Department Manager. I will just briefly introduce this item and then we can hand it over to questions. So we have looked at, we were hiring a health and safety manager, which is an existing classification, and we've had a struggle of finding enough candidates for that position. And so, working with Andrew, we have come up with a slightly lower classification with a health and safety coordinator, which we feel will have a better and bigger pool of candidates that could fulfill the type of position that we're looking for. And so this action tonight is to approve a job classification for health and safety coordinator and the associated salary schedule. So what we intend to do is that we would not hire the manager position, but then we would just hire at this coordinator position. And Andrew can answer any specific questions that you have about this.
Andrew, do you have any more further comments or can we go to questions?
No, I think you can proceed straight to questions. The report and the rationale, I think, is pretty straightforward.
All right, sounds good. Director Stanley, please.
Nothing, thank you.
Director Weiner?
I have no questions. I would move the question.
As soon as I check with the other directors, thank you. Director Spader?
No questions.
Vice President Sellis?
No, sir.
All right, and I'm good.
One question. Actually, I have one question.
Okay, I'm
When will
sorry.
this be posted? When will this be posted?
We're not exactly sure when we're posting it yet. We wanted to make sure that we had the flexibility to have this position available. The first thing I want to do is make sure that we get a little assistance in putting together a work plan for the new coordinator and get a little assistance from some consulting resources. Since we're not hiring a manager, I'm going to be asking an awful lot of this position. So I want to have a little bit more of a roadmap in place because I want to set them up for success rather than have them come in here and get overwhelmed, because we are hiring at a slightly lower class and we're looking at a different talent pool and are going to be looking and willing to hire somebody with the ability, with the attitude, and with the experience enough that we know we can train them and have them be the right person that's going to fit and grow into the position, as opposed to a manager, one of which we did find, but then they decided they didn't want the position, that we could just plug in and they could start to go. And I think that depends I don't expect to find that person with this category. So we want to make sure we set them up well.
And also, just if I can add to it, in terms of recruitments right now, in general, we've slowed down our recruitments, wanting to make sure that it's very difficult to bring someone. We have onboarded people at this point, but it's because they were hired prior to the pandemic. So we are being very cautious about recruitments and bringing people on during this time, and we're doing it very selectively because we also want to minimize the number of people that are on site, as well as obviously starting in the midst of this is difficult. So we're evaluating it by position. So we will take the same view with this position in consideration as with what Andrew is saying.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Vice President Sellis, is that good?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. I have no questions. Can I get a motion?
I move that.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I need to know who did what.
I move that we adopt a resolution approving a new job classification and specification of health and safety coordinator, authorizing amendment of the fiscal year 2020 and fiscal year 2021 position control list and wage schedule, effective May 20, 2020.
Thank you, Director Weiner. Can I get a second?
Second.
Was Was that Vice President Sudeth?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, please take the roll.
That would be President Alvarado,
Yes.
Vice President Sudeth,
Yes.
Director Stanley,
Nope.
Director Weiner,
Yes.
and Director Zepeda.
Yes.
Okay, next
Passes
item.
unanimously. The next item is to adopt a resolution authorizing the general manager to execute an amendment to the contract with Signaro WWT Incorporated by $212,053 to complete the cleaning and solids removal for critical water quality and resource recovery plant infrastructure for a total not to exceed $366,073.
Okay, who's presenting on this item?
That would be me, President Alvarado. This is Aaron Weiner with the Water Quality Department. Good evening, directors. So what?
Aaron, do you want me to run a thing for you? I've got 2 items that are waiting for presentations. Do you want me to run that, or do you want to run it?
I'm sorry, I'm not following the question.
Do you want me to share my screen?
No, actually, I have it right
You
in front
have
of me. Thank you, on my
Okay.
screen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
So about a month ago, early in April, we came to you with a proposal for digester cleaning from Synagro. The proposal was $154,000. As we've worked through the process of cleaning, it turns out we have more solids in the digester than we originally thought, for a couple of reasons that I'll explain when we get to the questions. So we are requesting an additional $74,000 or just under $75,000 to complete the digester cleaning. Excuse me. In addition to that, when Synagro was here, we asked them for a proposal to clean EQ basin number 1, which is the smaller of our stormwater EQ basins, which has never been cleaned before by an outside contractor. The cost of that is $137,000. So what we're asking you for is an increase, basically a change order or an amendment to cover the cost of those 2 additional items for Synagro. And the rest of the details are, as noted in the staff report in front of you. And the only other thing that I wanted to mention was that we are hopefully soon going to be finishing the cleaning and bringing digester 2 online, at which point we will likely be coming back to you with a proposal to clean digester number 1 after bringing that offline. And that's all I had to introduce the item and take questions.
Thank you, Aaron. Director Stanley, any questions, comments?
No, thank you.
Director Weiner?
Yes, I just wondered if I heard correctly. As I read the report, it was regarding the digesters 1 and 2. And you mentioned an EQ basin as being an additional item. And
Yeah, so I'm sorry, a couple separate items. So what we're asking for tonight is $75,000 just under to complete cleaning digester 1, and an additional $137,000 to fully clean EQ basin number 1. And I may have flip-flopped that. I'm sorry, $75,000 to finish cleaning digester 2, and the $137,000 to fully clean EQ basin number 1. Digester number 1 will come to you as a separate item at a later date. Does that clear it up?
yeah, I misread the report because I thought it was flipping back and forth between the cost of digester 2 and the digester 1. Didn't notice that it was EQ basin 1. So now that I'm clear on that, I understand.
Director Weiner, you all set?
I'm good.
Okay, Director Cepeda.
I'm good.
Okay, Vice President Sutter? Vice President Sutter.
Yes. Fine. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm good. Can I have a motion to approve, please?
I make a motion to move the item.
Second?
So the item's been moved and seconded. Please take the roll.
President Alvarado,
Yes.
Vice President Sutis,
Yes.
Director Stanley,
Yes.
Director Zepeda,
Yes.
and Director Weiner.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Next item, please.
Next item is C, adopt a resolution authorizing the general manager to execute an amendment to the agreement with Regional Government Services by an additional $360,000 for human resource support and miscellaneous consulting services, and increasing the term for a total not to exceed the amount of $3,158,334.
Okay, who's presenting?
Good evening, President Alvarado. Again, this is Justin Lovell, and I'll be presenting this item. So Regional Government Services have been providing transitional leadership services as well as consultant support for the district for a little over about 2 years now. And now that we are getting staffed up, and a lot of the work from RGS is winding down. However, some of what they're working on, we still have several more months of need to work with RGS, principally in the infrastructure and planning department. One of the RGS consultants is helping us significantly with a lot of the sustainability initiatives, and just to get us through pretty much through September. And then we also have RGS working with us on several of our with human resources consulting, and one of that is benefits administration, which is a pretty large chunk of one of the RGS consultants, as well as disability leave management and labor negotiations that are still ongoing. And so we need about $360,000. That'll get us through September of 2020. And that would get us through, and we would pretty much wind down the contract in its existing form with RGS. And so I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Justin. Director Stanley.
I have no questions.
Director Weiner.
No, I have no questions.
Director Cepeda.
A question. In the last meeting, we approved the budget for ADP to be able to help out with these HR. Can you tell us what they will be handling since we just hired ADP?
Right. So the current on the HR functions with RGS, that person will help us be part of the implementation with ADP. And so once ADP goes live in approximately 12 weeks, so we're assuming by the September, that services, a lot of the benefit services that the RGS person is performing would go into, would be part of ADP product. And so that work would no longer be needed. So that's probably the principal amount. There'll still be some occasional labor negotiation support, but that would be kind of through a separate agreement in the future.
Thank you.
And it's expected that it'll be under $50,000, so under the general manager
Right.
authority.
Okay, thank you. And for the disability leave management, what exactly do they do for that?
So currently they are really helping us communicate between the doctor's notices or modified duty and writing up any modified duty action plans, essentially what they're helping us with right now. We know within the next several months, a lot of that work is going to be more transitioned in-house now that we, with our existing human resource analysts, is that kind of transitional need is going to slow down significantly as well for the next several months.
And the disability, and thank you for that. The disability we're referring to, like short-term disability, California state disability, and long-term disability.
Right. Yeah. So it's essentially if there was happened to be a workers' comp issue, or there was a or somebody was on FMLA, they're essentially just helping us making sure that we have all the paperwork and all the documentation in order. And part of it's a training with our existing staff. So then we'll in the future that we would be taking that component on in-house.
Okay. No other questions. Thank you so much, Justin and Lisa. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Spada. Vice President Sutter?
Yes, I have questions.
Go right ahead.
Because RGS, this much money gives me a heartburn. I say it every time this RGS comes up. How many people does this cover?
This is covering, there are 5 people that are covering this amount of work.
So we're gonna pay $360,000 for 5 people for human resources support for all of 4, not even 5 months, for activities that last year when these came up, we were told would be transitioned in-house. And now we're told again that it's going to be transitioned in-house. I'm having issues with continuing to pay money to RGS. Now we're well over $3 million outsourcing still duties that I still see should be handled in-house. Writing up paperwork for modification of work duties should be in-house. And even if we're training people, it should not take till September to teach someone to write up this paperwork. They have no incentive to train our in-house staff. If we're going to continue to pay somebody, some organization, almost $400,000 for 4 to 5 months. I said it before, and I will say it again. I'm not going to continue to approve money going out the door to consultants when we should be training people to hire full-time, even if it's part-time, to have jobs at West County Wastewater through employees at West County Wastewater. All of these consultants are eating up our bottom line. Look how much money this is that we keep giving away to consultants. There's a lot of money, over $3 million to RGS. There's a lot of money, and I'm not seeing where the return is when they walk out of the door, even if it's in September. Where's the return to West County? Where's the retention of knowledge to West County? When they leave, they take that knowledge somewhere else. West County doesn't retain that. We're not hiring them as permanent. By this time, we should have hired them. So where is our transition plan? Do we have that? Do we have a transition plan?
I can answer that question. Do you want to, Justin, or do you want
I mean, I could start, and Lisa, if you want to add on
sure.
a little bit. Just to clarify on the split, 120,000 of the 360 would go to the HR services, and then the remaining is for infrastructure and planning work. So there's a lot of project management work related to sustainability initiatives. A lot of the they're helping a lot on that area, as well as some supervision within the infrastructure and planning department. So there are the 2 separate things. We are looking at, actually putting all this stuff in-house. So this is something that I'm working on, as well as Michael, on coming up with our plan to have all our staff. And so you'll see that in the next several months with different pieces that I'm working on to be able to have that staffing, so we can have our HR functions in-house and not rely on RGS. So that is pieces that I'm working on is taken longer than anticipated. You know, I wasn't hired a year ago when this amendment, the last amendment, went in June. So it's just a transition's longer than anticipated. But we are working to not use RGS to such a large extent to really bring a lot of the pieces in-house that they're doing.
And I do want to add, there are approximately 3 vacant positions right now that were anticipated to take on some of this work. Again, one of the things with ADP taking, that's the transition for benefits administration, which will move those things. But we also have an HR manager that we approved, or the board approved as part of the budget. That position does not exist. So we have to create a classification in order for that to exist. Once that exists and we hire for that, and both Justin and Michael, and Aaron for that matter, are basically doing their own evaluation. They've inherited some positions, new positions, and they wanted to do an evaluation, which is what they should be doing, to determine if those were really the right positions for their needs. One of those positions is the HR manager, so that has remained vacant this entire time. We will see some movement with that position, I think, going forward shortly. Michael also has positions. I believe there are 2 positions currently vacant. There used to be a supervisor position in the infrastructure and planning department that oversaw the division that the RGS employee is now seeing. And then there was no one essentially assigned to deal with the numerous environmental initiatives that we've now taken on. So there's some new tasks that we didn't have before, and there is a gap in supervision right now that we're currently dealing with, and that's part of the transition. Both Justin and Michael, again, looking at their departments and assessing. So I can't really say it's taking longer than anticipated, except to say that they're doing a thorough analysis before they make a move. But there is absolutely the intent to move these things in-house to the appropriate positions in the right time frame, because the last thing we want to do is move forward with a position and it not be the right position with the right tasks. So that was the only other piece I wanted to add. And we definitely understand and are in agreement that the reliance on the consultants is not something we want to do. And that's what you've seen, and you'll see a dramatic change. Part of the problem was before, essentially every single executive leadership position was being filled by the consultant, because the only permanent person in place was myself. And actually for a year I was interim. So it is changing. I understand, not maybe as quickly as you'd like, but it is going to happen, and we are moving in that direction.
This is true, because that's my pain point.
Yes.
My point is this. Everything else I can deal with, but that's my pain point, is having consultants instead of employees. It's a pain point for me to give $3 million to RGS. It's a pain point for me personally to have to explain that to our community, how we have this much money going to someone other than our community, as hiring. I mean, I would rather even see the consultants move to actual employees, but that's not even happening. So I get it. I know it's harder. I have a hard time hiring people myself, but these are pain points for me personally. So I'm glad to see that there's movement in trying to bring it in-house. I would rather have seen that as part of the staff report, that is what's happening. So just a recommendation that when you're writing the staff report, that you actually mention that is what you're doing, Mr. Savannah, Mr. Laredo. That's what I would say. And my recommendation to you when you're writing that staff report, that you put that that's your intention. That, otherwise it looks like we're spending $360,000 in 4.5 months on temporary contractors with no transitional forethought on how we're bringing this in-house. Thank you, Mr. President. I'm finished.
Thank you, Vice President Sutter, and I too share your concerns. I'd like to see that we get out of this contract with RGS and hire our own employees. And it sounds to me like staff is moving in that direction. So hopefully we won't see RGS coming up again for additional funds. So can I get a motion to approve this, please?
I'll make a motion to move this up for a vote. So I'll make a motion to approve the motion.
Thank you. Can I have a second, please?
I second, but I would like an explanation on what Director Zepeda just said.
All I was saying is, so making a motion, what I was making a motion is so we could bring it up for a vote and either move forward or not, because nobody was jumping at making a motion. So I made a motion so that way we can figure out where we're going.
But what was the second part? You were making a motion to to get a vote, or, I mean.
So I'm making a motion of whatever's being proposed.
Moving the item, correct?
Moving the item.
Thank you.
Okay, that's what I thought you were doing, but it didn't sound like it. Okay. I second that.
All right, so the item's been moved and seconded. Please take the roll.
President Alvarado,
Yes.
Vice President Sudit,
No, I can't.
Director Stanley,
Yes.
Director Zepeda,
Yes.
and Director Weiner.
Yes.
I don't know what to say because the motion passed because you have a quorum, right?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
correct.
correct.
Okay.
All right, next item, please.
Item D is adopt a resolution authorizing the,
Tables.
That one's
That
been
item was
moved.
moved.
On to 6.
oh, sorry about that. Information reports. Information reports are provided to keep the board updated on routine, recurring, or specific matters, but do not require board vote. There will be no discussion of information reports unless specific items are pulled for discussion. A is received the general manager's report for the months of March and April 2020.
Again, just open if you have any questions. I would like to request, though, that items C and D actually, I guess, be pulled for discussion. We'd like to present a little bit of information on that one.
Any questions on item A of 6? Director Stanley,
No.
Director Weiner,
No?
Director Cepeda,
Nope.
Vice President Sutter.
Sir, thank you.
And
Good
I'm
report.
Item B, please.
Item B is receive the board's attorney statement of services dated May 1st, 2020 for services provided in the month of May 2020.
It was actually for services provided in the month of April 2020. This is the point on the agenda where you typically review my invoices and I answer any questions. I did send out my typical email explaining what I thought needed additional explanation, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, Director Stanley, any questions?
I've already asked my questions personally. Thank you.
All right, Director Weiner,
No, I have no questions.
Director Cepeda,
No questions.
Vice President Sutter.
No, sir, thank you.
All right, and I'm good. Next item, please.
Item C, receive an update on the business of West County Agency.
Who's presenting?
So Andrew is going to provide you with a brief update.
Andrew, go ahead.
Working on the unmute there. Yes, just a very brief update. We had a special meeting on May the 15th, and the West County Agency authorized us to enter into a contract with Carollo Engineers to proceed with the design of the sodium bisulfate facility. We're going to continue to work with Richmond on updating the agreement, the joint powers agreement, specifically to do a better job of defining the roles and responsibilities and try to address some of the concerns about the timing of payments. And I think we can make some arrangements on that regarding when we would receive funding for capital projects, for example. And I'm cautiously optimistic that we can work through that with Richmond and be able to come back with approval on that agreement by early fall, September, October, and be able to definitely do that before we go out to bid for the construction project. And that won't happen until at least late fall or early winter as we go through the design process. But I do think that on this project that we are cooperating and coordinating with Richmond fairly well. There will be some details in that JPA that may take some negotiations back and forth, so it's difficult to say exactly when we will be back, but we are moving forward on the projects, and we'll be going to the West County Agency with a budget update in June to pass that budget. That will give Richmond plenty of time to be able to take a look and whatever machinations they need to go through to approve and appropriate the dollars into their budget. It's a little confusing exactly what they have to do there, but we've given them plenty of notice as to what we expect the budget to be. We'll have the budget passed in June, and we will be sending them an invoice in the next couple of days for the Carollo contract. That money was budgeted in this current fiscal year. They're well aware of that and in communication with their Public Works Director. And then they'll have plenty of time, like I said, to have the funds available before we start construction. So hopefully we can move these things along smoothly, but we will see how that progresses. And we'll be back with updates to the board. Any questions? I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Andrew. Director Stanley, any questions?
No, thank you.
Director Weiner.
Have none.
Director Cepeda.
Andrew, just a quick question, and I'm not sure if you might know this or not. Some of this might be historical, but have we ever had any issues with any agencies that we work with not being able to meet their responsibilities?
I don't have a lot of historical knowledge, but I think that ultimately they have met their responsibilities. It's more about a timeliness issue.
Okay, perfect. Because I know that Richmond right now is going through a financial hardship, so I want to make sure that if we're putting the money out, that we get the money back.
Oh, but as far as that goes, we're invoicing them for the consulting work. Their Public Works Director indicated that they did have that funding budgeted in this year, and they've done whatever appropriation mechanism they have to do. It's like I said, it's a little arcane in the way they explained it, and I'm not fully understanding that process. But I do also understand that the monies that we're talking about for the construction project are part of an SRF fund alone. So it's not going to be monies that are coming from the general fund and the other areas that are going to be dramatically hit with the budget issues that they have now. So I'm optimistic that they will have the funding for the project. It's in an enterprise fund that will be paying back the loan. And we will not enter into a construction contract until the funds are in the WCA accounts. So we won't put ourselves in a position of not being able to pay the contractor or having to pay the contractor with West County wastewater funds.
Thank you for that. No more questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cepeda. Vice President Sutter?
Yes. So last night, Richmond City Council meeting, another fun adventure. They were dealing with their wastewater plant issue, and West County came up. West County, this issue came up with the West County agency, and also we came up. And Mr. Martinez spoke about West County wastewater, and he kept talking about West County wastewater and the West County agency. And I want to make sure that I get his comments correct, because I wanted to reach through the screen and shake him because he kept talking about these West County wastewater making a profit off of the relationship with the wastefall. And he kept saying it. And you know, when you say it 3 times, other people aren't really paying attention. They start to believe what they heard. Until finally the attorney had to correct him. And then there was the guy from Veolia Water was there, and he also corrected him. And then they got into this discussion about Richmond paying 70-30% of the upkeep, and West County paying the 30%, Richmond 70%. And they started saying that, oh, and Mick, you may want to weigh in on this. Well, we've been talking to West County, and we're trying to move it towards 65-35. And we will continue to talk about it some more. It's only been verbal discussions so far, and we're hoping that we can make this more formal soon. Someone from the water waiting, and then that's when they got into this huge discussion about if West County has a markup on the project, and they said no, they don't. Veolia is contracting with Corolla for the project, for the design build. They were getting it mixed up between this money coming from West County agency and the money that they're getting from for the outfall, and the money that Richmond needs to bring in for its own plant. But they're throwing it out into the universe for the citizens of Richmond, because Richmond has to now, you know, and they passed it last night, do a rate increase. So now they've thrown West County wastewater into this mix, right? So I would want all of you to please go back and watch last night's very, very painful meeting. But you need to watch it so you can see what's being said. But they've got us in the middle of this mess, and somehow they're saying something about us getting a markup on this project and moving us from the 70-30 mix to the 65-35 mix. So do you know anything about this?
Direct, you want to go ahead first, Mick?
Yeah, I do know something about this. 70-30 has never been discussed. When you look at the existing joint powers agreement, the split, it was an audited split, is 68-32. Richmond proposed, since this is a little bit different project, Richmond proposed several months ago that they should pay 65% and the West County Wastewater District should pay 35% of both capital and O&M costs, and West County Wastewater District agreed to that. We just need to memorialize it, so I don't know where the 70-30 comes from. That issue also came up at the last West County agency meeting, and I thought we clarified it then as well.
If I may add, at the last meeting, Mick did say those numbers exactly, and I believe Councilmember Martinez repeated them. It's a little unfortunate. It sounds like there's, again, a lot of confusion being thrown out there, and their process is rather arcane, but there was quite a lengthy process to determine what the splits should be, and the amount of administrative cost that goes into managing the WCA, which almost all of that burden is currently falling on the West County wastewater and not on Richmond at all. So it's a little disingenuous to suggest that somehow there's some kind of a markup on this and a profit being made, because first, it's illegal for us to make a profit. But like I said, I'm going to hopefully be back in September or October, but I'm a little waffling on that somewhat because of exactly this, is that if we have good faith negotiations with Richmond, as I think we will in talking to their staff, then we'll come up with some agreement and we'll define the roles and responsibilities, but there may be some contention around the actual split of costs going forward after this project. There may be some concerns about who manages the agency, because it will be part of our proposal to say, Richmond, it's your turn. You administer the agency. You seem to have an issue. We're more than happy to turn it over to you for administration, and we'll codify that into the agreement so that it wouldn't be this one agency or the other can do it. We'll say that one agency will take it for 3 to 5 years, and we'll negotiate what that would be. Then it goes to the other agency. So it's very clear in the JPA. But the 65-35, that's based on flow numbers. And so they're real. And we have no problem with that. But we need to look at it going forward and work with them. But there's no magic to this. It's based on, we have the facilities there. What percentage of flow goes through those facilities from our agency, and what goes through there from Richmond? And so I'm not sure what they're trying to accomplish, quite honestly, but we will continue to work with staff in good faith on this end to the best that we can.
Thank you. I know he was corrected twice or 3 times last night when he kept misspeaking. So, you know, they kept trying to correct him. So I thought I would just let you know. So, okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Sutter. I too attended that meeting via Zoom, and heard the same things. And it seems like Richmond just, I don't know, for some reason, they don't have together. So I encourage people to look at the meeting, but, you know, you're going to be frustrated, as I was, and I'm sure Vice President Sutter was. But what we discussed at the meeting, you know, they voted on, we voted on, and I think that's kind of binding. So, you know, we'll go forward from there. Next item, please.
President Alvarado?
Yes.
I think Harry wanted to.
Yeah, I'll just blur that out. Do you think it would be advantageous for us to send a person to give testimony to the board to present the facts rather than rely on one of the members of the WCA to present them to the Richmond City Council? In other words, you know, take an opportunity to respond to his whatever he makes, whatever claims he makes.
You know, as I think it would be advantageous, I don't think it would do any good, but rather than send someone, we could also send them a written document saying what we agreed on and what we didn't. I think that probably will be better, but I'll leave that up to the board. When this comes up, we can also put it on a future agenda to discuss the item to make sure that we're going in the right direction. But I don't think your idea is a bad idea.
President Alvarado, may I make a comment here?
Sure.
Mick and I have already had some discussions around that, in that we will memorialize that 65-35 in the agreements that we're working on right now as regards specifically to the SBS project, because we do agree with that and have no problem with that. As part of the JPA going forward, whether it's 65-35, I think we have to, you know, continue to look at that, but it seems to be the reasonable number based on the flow rates. And then when this comes up to the WHO agencies to approve, we're more than happy, I'll be more than happy at that point to go to a Richmond Council meeting and discuss it if that's necessary at that point. But I think that we have quite a bit of a discussion that we need to have in the next couple of months to try to, at least at a staff level, hopefully come to some semblance of an agreement that we can move forward with. I quite honestly don't quite understand what's going on with the politics of it, but I think at the staff level we can work something out.
Yeah, I don't think anybody understands that political level over there, but thank you, Andrew. Any further questions or comments? All right, seeing none, next item, please.
D is receive an update on West County Wastewater's response to COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, who's giving us?
Andrew.
I'm back again, President Alvarado. The report is similar to what we've been providing each meeting. Not a lot of significant changes, and I think that that's the important message, is that going forward, there have been, as we've all seen, a lot of politics, a lot of charged issues, a lot of reopening, phase 1, phase 2, restaurants, takeout, retail. But we have been operating this entire time as essential infrastructure. And what we're doing is gradually bringing back a few more people. We're working on our exposure control plan to make sure we can have that happen safely. And we as an agency, regardless of exactly what's happening with the state or the county orders, we're going to continue to require face coverings for all employees through at least July 31st. We're going to make sure that we don't have any large events through the end of the year. We're going to continue along the lines pretty much with what we've been doing in trying to, rather than, as the order says now, maximize the number of employees that work remotely. As we move forward, we are going to, in the same spirit, minimize the number of employees in the office at any given time so that we can allow for greater space and be able to continue the physical distancing, with the idea that we want to continue our operations, make sure we're providing it as efficiently and effectively as we can, but at the same time keeping our employees safe and working for the good of everybody in the office. And so we're making small changes, and we're going to make those adjustments. We're communicating those to staff, and we're going to continue moving forward because there's just a lot of unknowns, and we don't want to feel a great deal of, well, we do feel it, but we don't want to react to a great deal of pressure to say that we must open up or do something differently. We are open and we are operating. What we want to do is operate in a safe manner. And so that's what we're going to continue to do.
Thank you, Andrew. Questions from the board? Let's start
Could I add one quick thing before you move to the board questions or comments? I wanted to also just add that we're using this opportunity to do some, where we can, some improvements now to the building. For example, today we had some work done to upgrade our security access. And so we're also using the opportunity where staff are out of the office, and again, where it's appropriate, to do some of these things that are difficult to do when we have staff fully staffed in the office. So I just wanted to add that as well.
Thank you, Lisa. Director Stanley, questions, comments?
No, thanks.
Director Weiner.
Have we had anybody say they got it or stayed home because?
So we can't actually get into that. We can't address that in a public meeting, but I will say that we are taking all of the precautions, and if we did have somebody that did, we have protocols for that, essentially.
So you can't, in general, we can't discuss the possibility that somebody.
I don't think that we should be talking about that, but we do have a small organization. So I'm happy to talk offline, but I will say that it's not something that, because we have a small organization, I think it's better to not discuss that in this meeting.
I agree with that position. I think she's correct.
All right, well, I'll ask you offline.
Okay.
You all set, Director Weiner?
I am good.
All right, Director Spada.
No questions from me. Thank you so much.
Vice President Sutter?
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm good. Next item, please.
Next item is number 7, matters from staff, general manager, and attorney. A, staff, general manager, attorney, comments, communication reports on issues or matters pertaining to the overall operations of the district.
Andrew, Aaron, Justin, Michael, anything from you guys?
Got a quick update. Michael Savannah, Infrastructure and Planning Department Manager. Just want to update board and the public on where we are with the 2 emergencies that we're wrapping up. There's the Hilltop Green emergency. We're currently in the process of drafting and reviewing the staff report and the closeout report that'll come back to the board shortly on that. All of the work is done there and it's been done for some time. On Lakeside, we have some spoils, which are the dirt that we removed when we did the excavation. We need to get rid of those spoils, tally up what that change order is going to look like, and then we'll be preparing the staff report and closeout report for the board on both of those. I'm open for any questions that anyone may have.
All right. Questions? Director Stanley?
Nope.
Director Weiner?
I have none.
Director Cepeda?
None for me.
Vice President Sutter?
No, sir, thank you.
All right. Next item, please.
B is,
President,
go ahead.
President Alvarado, may I make a quick comment?
Oh, go right ahead.
I just wanted to mention that we did on, what day was that? A week ago, I guess. The San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority did approve our grant application for the resiliency project, which otherwise known as the Ecotone Slope or Living Levee. And that's over $600,000 in funding, and we'll be bringing that to the board on June 3rd to accept that grant, and then to hopefully have the board acknowledge that the project that we want to move forward with is some form of a levee improvement of wildlife habitat and flood protection along the waterfront there as we continue to try to work with other partners. I've been in coordination with the Restoration Authority project managers. We're trying to put together the work program. It'll take us a couple of months to get into a contract, and then from there we'll start to hire some consultants to do some preliminary design work. And this is quite exciting from the standpoint that we are getting money for planning, which is not always that common. And there is a good pot of funding out there for construction if we can get ourselves to a good project. And it's going to be a challenge to try to get some partners, and that's what we'll be working on over the next few months.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Next item, please.
Next item is receive a presentation by Board Attorney on the Brown Act. Would you like me to bring that up?
Yes, please. And we need to go to the what is a meeting slide.
Why is this not scrolling? Oh, there we are. Sorry.
Not showing here.
Okay. You can't see any of it?
I can't see any of it, but I have it on my screen too.
Can anybody else see it?
Nick, you could. Yeah, we can't see it. You haven't shared that screen with us.
Ah,
you need to
reshare individually.
I have it up.
Nick could share his screen as well.
I have it up on a different computer, Justin.
Oh, okay.
But here, I can do it now.
Yeah, so
I can go
yeah,
to
you can
screen
do it.
share.
Right. There you go.
You can see it now?
This is where we started, that's right, with underlying principles. Yes. Keep going.
Okay, so go forward.
Yeah, it's a few slides in. Next slide, keep going. Yep, go get one more. Next slide is it. Okay, this is where we are tonight. We ended last time with what is a legislative body, and the question that we ended with was, well, why does it make a difference? And the answer is that the Brown Act applies only to meetings of legislative bodies. So we start tonight with what is a meeting? And I've begun with the statutory definition: any congregation of a majority of the members of a legislative body at the same time and location, including teleconference location. So that means anytime 3 of you are invoked, you are the majority of the members of the legislative body to hear, discuss, deliberate, or take action. So it's not only a discussion that includes taking action, it's a discussion of a matter that's within your subject matter jurisdiction, whether or not action is involved. Now, I included the point about not having to include action because there's a historical reason for it. It used to be that a majority of members could get together and discuss district business as long as they were not trying to develop a collective concurrence on what they were going to do. That was amended out about 15 years ago. And so now any discussion among a majority of members, which can include only, it can be as simple as the exchange of information, constitutes a meeting. We all know the easy case, right? 3 directors get together to discuss district business. That's a meeting. Same with standing committees. And this is where the language of the statute is important. It says any congregation of a majority of the members. There are 2 members of standing committees. And so 1 member is not a majority. That is why when only 1 member shows up, and that it can be it can be a member and a member, or a member and alternate. That's why when only 1 shows up, it's not a meeting. It doesn't constitute a majority of the members. And this applies, meetings occur too with collective briefings. Suppose, for example, your district manager wants to sit you all 5 of you down and go through something that's important to her and that's within the subject matter jurisdiction of the district. Cannot do that without it constituting a meeting. So why does all this matter? Next slide, please. It matters, and I'll get to the serial meetings next. It matters because meetings just need to be properly noticed. That's what this is all about. If you're going to have a meeting, you got to properly notice it. Regular meetings require 72 hours notice. Special meetings, 24 hours notice. Emergency meetings, sometimes an hour notice, sometimes no notice at all. So one of the traps we have to look out for is what are called prohibited serial meetings. What are those? What's a serial meeting? That's the statute says a majority of directors. For the board, that would be 3 directors. For a committee, that would be 2 directors. Shall not, outside of a properly noticed meeting. This again is where notice comes in. If you notice a meeting between a majority of directors or a committee, then the rest of this is irrelevant because you can discuss anything you want that's on the agenda. But you can't use a series of communications and directly or through intermediaries, and we get back to the discuss, deliberate, or take action. Discuss means exactly what it says. You can't exchange information about anything within the subject matter jurisdiction of the district without doing proper notice. And this includes every conceivable type of communication, email, Facebook, you name it. You can't do it. Next slide, please. Typical types of serial meetings. How do they occur? First one's daisy chain. What's a daisy chain? One director contacts another who contacts another. Pretty simple, right? I was trying to think of a good way to remember this. And for you baseball fans, Tinker to Everest a Chance. Do you remember that? That was the shortstop, second baseman, and first baseman of the Chicago Cubs back in 1906-07, way back when. Very famous double play combination. So if you picture the issue within the subject matter of the jurisdiction is the ground ball being hit to shortstop. That's when Tinker picks it up. No meeting yet, right? Flips it over to Evers at second base. Still no meeting because there's only 2 of them involved. Evers throws it to Chance at first base. You got your serial meeting. All 3 of the three, which would be a quorum of the board, are involved. That's a serial meeting. One conveys information to the other, who conveys information to the other. So Director A can't talk to B to talk to C to D about the same thing. Second type, hub and smoke, intermediary is used. For example, Director A calls me and says, hey, call Director B and Director C and tell them this, or tell them I want to do this. I then become the intermediary, and that becomes an illegal meeting as well. We're going to get into what is not a meeting that involves me or your general manager or staff next time. But you got to be careful because you can inadvertently step into this and create a meeting just by communicating and having somebody communicate on your behalf to 2 other directors if you are. Oh, Sherry just sent me a chat that said, please send the slides. Anyway, next slide, please. Teleconference meetings. I wanted to put this up because we're doing it so often these days. And a question came up the last board meeting as to whether they can be done when we're not in the COVID-19 lockdown. And the answer is yes. The teleconference meetings are permissible for all purposes. And teleconference doesn't mean just being on the telephone. It's any form of electronic means. So what we are doing now is technically a teleconference meeting. It includes video, audio, any type of electronic communication, so long as it is for the benefit of the public and the district. You know, I suppose we could always debate what that is, but that's the legal criteria. But you could use it anytime, not just during the shelter in place. Next slide. If you're going to do so, and I kind of like these actually, but if you're going to do so, there are some technical requirements. First, all votes have to be right by roll call, and President Alvarado has been doing that religiously. The agendas have to be posted at all teleconference locations. The meetings have to be conducted to protect the attendees' rights. What does that mean? That means you've got to be able to you have to allow people to exercise their constitutional rights and speak to you somehow. In order to facilitate that, the agenda has to identify all teleconference locations. They have to be accessible to the public. A quorum, that means 3 directors have to participate from within the district. And the agenda must allow for public comments. And this is interesting, at each teleconference location. So if we're at 5 different locations, technically everybody has to allow public comment at each location. So you might have people knocking on your door at home. Next slide, please. And Director Stanley just sent me, are we supposed to be posting agenda on our doors now? No, this is being done during the shelter-in-place orders. And so what Governor Newsom did is he issued an executive order. And that executive order says, and I'm paraphrasing, each teleconference location does not have to be identified. They do not have to be accessible. Public comment is not required at each location, and for that matter, technically not required at any location. You don't have to post agendas at each location. And here's, to me, an interesting one. A quorum of the board doesn't need to be present within the district during this shelter in place. So you can be scattered everywhere. We could be doing this from all over the world. You don't need to provide a physical location for public comment or observation. That is, that's one of the requirements if you're going to do teleconference meetings other than during the shelter in place order. Now, this is going to end. I don't know when, but at some point the governor is going to rescind his orders, and we'll have to go back to the way it is described on the prior slide. So I think that's the last slide. That's it for now, and next time we're going to go through what is not a meeting and what you can do outside of the noticing requirements. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mick. Director Stanley, any questions?
I think I got them answered as I went. Thank you.
Director Weiner.
Yeah, Mick, when there's no location for these Zoom meetings, other than the interwebs, so why would the public can comment through the chat, or there's a participants button if you're just an attendee, question and answer. So you can submit questions and answers during the meeting. So why does location even matter, even though the governor's report is that, you don't have to have a location, but as far as public comment goes, there is no way to describe it as a location. It's at the meeting.
No, that's correct, and it's a good question. So that's why in a normal teleconference meeting, not during this COVID shelter-in-place order, you must allow them to actually come physically to where you are to make comments, and that means every director who's teleconferencing, and if the meeting's at the district office, you have to give them a place to come. During this COVID shelter-in-place, that requirement has been lifted. The second part of your question was why does there have to be a location? And all I can say is that is what the legislature in its infinite wisdom dictated. The statute says, other than this period in time, there has to be a quorum of the board within the district boundaries. Even though you're right, it makes no real difference. Also, with regard to public comment at this point, you don't have to allow public comment during these Zoom meetings. You can require public comment to be submitted, for example, 24 hours in advance of the meeting. So you don't need to allow the public to comment during the meeting itself. But that, again, is just during the shelter in place.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Weiner. Director Spada.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mitch, I have a question on the roll call vote. I've seen other meetings not have a roll call vote where they just do a voice vote, and they'll go and say, all in favor, say aye. Any nays? And if there's any nays, then they'll do a roll call vote if it's needed there. Otherwise, it just moves on if it's all yays. Is that, are we taking a more conservative take on that, or is that written somewhere where others are not following it, or are we following it, or is there some gray lines in there?
There's no gray lines. During, the statute specifically says all votes taken during a teleconference meeting shall be by roll call. That is not one of the requirements the governor's executive order alleviated. So technically, all votes must be by roll call. If others are doing it differently, they're not following the statute.
Okay, good to know. That is it. Thank you. That was my only question. Good presentation.
Thank you, Director Spada. Vice President Sutter?
Thank you. I'm glad you asked that question because, yeah, that was always mine. I tried to correct a few people and got my head chopped off about the roll call vote. So I'm glad you asked it. It's especially in membership organizations because you never know who's a member on the phone call or on the video conference. And so it always confuses me when people do a consent vote rather than a roll call vote. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Sutter. Mick, I have a question about committees. Why should the board have committees if any board member can attend and then it becomes a special board meeting? I mean, it just defeats the purpose because committees are a recommending force, not a approval force. So I'm just a little confused about that because of all the commissions and boards I've been on, this is the only one that allows all members to attend.
It's an excellent question. Okay, let's start with committees. Committees are technically 2 members, so it's not a quorum of the board, right?
That's correct.
And other directors can attend those meetings as long as they sit there and say nothing, and then it remains a committee meeting. As a matter of policy, this district many years ago said, look, we want our directors to be able to attend committee meetings and participate. And so that is why they are noticed as special meetings. It is unique to this district. I've never had anybody else do it, but it is legal. And really, that's a policy question. If the board wants to change that and go back to a strict committee structure or eliminate committees altogether, it can do either one. That's a policy question.
Okay, so the board can actually go back and say committee meetings are committee meetings.
Yes, that is a policy issue for the board.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm surprised, President Alvarado, you didn't ask me about Tinker to Evers the Chance.
Go ahead, explain to me.
I already did. I can go through it again. Great double play combination. Chicago Cubs, 1906.
Who's on first?
Yeah.
No, not who's on first. I don't know who's on second.
Evers.
Yeah, that's who's there. I don't know.
Mr. President, may I ask a follow-up question?
Sure, go right ahead, Director Cepeda.
If I may, Nick, for the follow-up question on the committees, which policy do we currently have that says what you just said, pretty much? So we know which one to go update, because it sounds like we might want to update it, or just follow it.
Board of Directors meeting policies and procedures. I'm pretty sure it's there.
So it's that one. So
I will extract it and send it to you.
it is there, and we did discuss it at the last planning committee meeting, and that was one of the proposed changes that I made to that version. So yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I remember it being there. I just, because we're not following, I was like, maybe it's somewhere else. That's another policy that we're not following.
No, no.
So that was a policy decision made some time ago.
So when you say policy decision, don't we actually have to change the policy? Because I believe the current policy says in writing that committees are 2. And if you have 3, then you have to have all this other stuff. So
you have to notice it, yes. That's correct.
Okay.
So the policy, as it's written, currently allows for it, the provision basically says that it can be noticed as a special meeting, and that's been the practice to allow for what Mick is referring to, the policy decision that previous boards made about wanting that structure. The revised policy and procedures that I proposed, and we talked about the planning committee, we rewrote that section so that that wouldn't be there. And I think we put in something about, you know, if a board member, a non-committee member wanted to attend, that they would have to notify us. I think it was like 11 days in advance or something to that effect. I don't have it in front of me, so that we could then notice it as a special board meeting. So anyway, so it's there, and we can certainly talk about it further, but it is that's a proposed change that staff is recommending.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next item, please.
Oh, President Alvarado, I have a question.
Sorry. Go right ahead.
So we're still on these committees. So I think the bigger issue is not just that another board member attends, it is that the committee meeting becomes a quasi-board meeting.
Yes.
And so that's what I think the concern is, right? That it's now no longer a committee meeting. So if one of us wants to attend one of the committee meetings, I think it's fine as long as you attend in your capacity as an observer of the committee meeting, not as a member of the committee itself. And so I think, Meg, that's what we were, and you correct me if I'm wrong, President Alvarado, is that's the kind of guidance or what that we're looking for, is that we need a distinction between the committee meeting and the board meeting.
And the effort
where there was one committee meeting where everybody showed up.
Yeah.
And there was literally no difference between it being a board meeting, except for the fact that it was the planning meeting, but it looks like a board meeting.
Yeah.
And an actual board meeting. And we really need to keep those separate. And I personally think we need to make sure that if you're going to attend, and I think there was something that Director Wiener said, he said, I'm here, but I'm not here. So,
And that's the way it should be.
And that's the way it should be if you're going to attend. You know, if I'm going to attend the global warming meeting, I'm there, but at that point, I'm not there as a director. I'm there observing. Because I'm interested in global warming, I'm going to sit and observe. So I think that we need to make that distinction if we're attending the committee meetings and soaking it in, and not attending to, you know, in our capacity as directors, because then it does change the nature and the tenor of the meeting in and of itself.
That's correct. Go ahead.
Previously, in this interim time, the way that it was done in person is that the committee members would sit where the board normally sits, and then the other members, if they did attend, they sat in the audience, essentially. In these meetings, the way in which it can be accomplished is that the non-committee members can simply enter through the public portal as if you're just a member of the public observing the meeting. So you still can hear the discussion. I think you could still submit a probably, I don't know that answer. Mick, you can address that. But anyway, the way in which you could do it is by going through the public portal, and then it's very clear that you're attending the meeting just as any member of the public and not participating in the discussion, which then, if you did, becomes that special board meeting that you're talking about wanting to avoid.
That's all correct. We're getting a little off the presentation here,
Yeah.
but the way that the prior board tried to balance that policy was also saying that when committee meetings are noticed as special board meetings, they still only make recommendations, not decisions, such that all decisions still had to come to one of the regular meetings.
Yeah, I think that defeats the purpose of committees, and we definitely need to discuss this further as a full board, because I want committees to have the power to be a recommending force. I mean, if we want to have board meetings to discuss stuff, eventually it's going to come back to the full board anyway. I mean, because committees only make recommendations, they don't make approvals. So I think having committees that all the board attends is non-productive. It really is. It's just like having extra meetings. So we really need to get back to the nature of committee meetings. And that's my recommendation.
And it's included in the updated policies and procedures, and so we'll bring that forward for the board to consider. You can make that change to the policies and procedures, and then you can put it in effect, and it'll be accurately reflected in the document.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. Next item, please.
Matters from members of the board. A is meeting reports, reports on committee activities, conferences, seminars, meetings pertaining to the overall operations of the district.
All right, I'd like to know if the ad hoc committee has set a date for a meeting yet.
Yes, we set it up for today, and we met actually right before this meeting. We are going to be getting ready to schedule another one in 2 weeks. We did really good work, and we are moving it along. So we should have another date where we'll be sending an email out soon to schedule another one for 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you so much, Director Cepeda.
You're welcome, President Lombardo.
Anybody else? Director Stanley?
No, thank you.
Director Weiner?
These are our reports from our meetings that we attended.
No, this is yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Sorry.
Okay, so I attended the mayor's Zoom conference, and to add on to what
Are you talking about the mayor of San Pablo, Richmond?
no, mayor's conference.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, gotcha.
The mayor's conference, Contra Costa County Mayor's Conference.
Gotcha. Thank you.
And to add on to what Andrew said, it's not only the city of Richmond that is going to have budget shortfalls going forward. According to the report, legislative report, it's everyone. So from the state down to counties, down to cities, everybody's budgets have been or will be affected by the loss of sales tax, etc. However they get their revenues are down, will be down. So that was what I found out at that meeting. Had a great global warming committee meeting. Awesome work is being done. I attended the legislative days on Monday and Tuesday. Tuesday was a live conference, and Monday there were 3 webinars posted, and the one I watched on Monday was all about CalPERS, and I asked some questions about what I think I knew or found out of Justin, and he got back to me, and it was about unfunded pension liabilities and how they work. And then on Tuesday, there was the actual legislative discussion, and it was all about the advocacy that they want all of the individual districts to do going forward And I will be submitting a report regarding that. And it's all online, and I think whoever wanted to go and attend and missed it, you can still look at the whole meeting on Tuesday, and it's only it was a 3-hour meeting, and then Monday, the webinars are still up for review. So that's my report.
Thank you, Director Weiner. Director Cepeda, anything further?
Sorry, I couldn't move my mouse. My dog is moving my arm. No, nothing further.
Thank you. Vice President Sutter?
Oh, just really quickly, I also attended legislative days, and I'll give you a report. We've been busy with doing extra work with trying to get our census done in our area. So it's going to affect all of us in one way or the other in getting some money into our part of the county. And quite a few other days, Immigrant Day. This is the legislative period, ACLU Day. We actually have one again today. So I will send a report. I won't belabor us because it's getting close to time for me to break fast. I'm done.
Yep, you got it. Thank you, Vice President Sutter. I have nothing. Next item, please.
Good of the order, report on events, one I just did. Report on events and activities which may be of interest to members of the board and community members.
Okay, let's go down the line. Director Stanley.
I've got nothing, thanks.
Director Weiner?
Nope, no report, no special reports.
Okay, thank you. Director Cepeda?
No reports.
Thank
Stay
you.
inside.
Vice President Sutter?
Yes, inside.
All set?
Yes.
And I'm good. Next item, please.
Future agenda items, informal observations and inquiries regarding the business of the district or requests for placement of items of interest on future agenda items.
Director Stanley?
No.
Director Weiner?
There was something you mentioned. I was asking a question and you said maybe we should make that a future agenda item. Does anybody else besides me remember what that was?
I'm all right.
Is
I
it in the
really
minutes?
don't remember.
I do remember something I wanted to add.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I said I do remember something I wanted to add whenever you get done.
Yeah, we'll get right back to you. Thank you.
I'm obviously done because I can't remember what it was I wanted to bring up.
I'll be looking for it as well.
All right, Director Cepeda?
Nothing for me.
Vice President Sutter?
Yeah, I would like to hear about the training plans that we have, the transitional training plans that we have for human resources, I&E, things like that. I know that it's not finished, so at some point in the near future, I would like to hear about that.
All right. Thank you, Vice President Sutter. Director Stanley?
I would like to bring up the subject of a grant writer again to search for money.
Okay. Director Stanley, thank you. And the only thing I want on future agenda items is to discuss the committee structures and how we're doing it right now, but it sounds like it's already on the policy and procedures of the board. So I'll wait for that to come up. Next item, please.
9 is adjournment.
All right. Thank you all very much. You all stay safe. Have a great weekend, a great week, and take care. Adjournment, 8 o'clock.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Have a great holiday weekend.
Night all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.